I'm sure you face the issue of a patient consulting with you, then going to, we'll say, Turkey or some other black market area to save money, and they ended up in a black market clinic where poor work was done. Then the patient comes to you and says, hey, Dr. Harris, can you repair this work? When you look at him and say, I could have done a great work beforehand. How do you handle a patient like that had the opportunity to get it done right with you first and comes back to you for repair work?
Well, the temptation is to say, you got what you paid for. However, I don't do that. And I've had numerous situations where a patient has come to consult with me, ended up going elsewhere, specifically to Turkey or someplace that offered very low cost for a transplant. And you really feel for them. The hardest part is that you and I both know this, and most people that have done the research into hair restoration, is that the follicles are a limited resource, non-renewable. And unfortunately, if they go there and they don't get great growth, the tendency for these clinics is to harvest an immense amount of hair, at least in one procedure. I think you may have mentioned this, but there were ads out there for unlimited number of grafts for $4,000 or $3,000. Well, we all know that you don't have an unlimited supply of grafts to transplant. So unfortunately, when they've come to me to effect a repair, a lot of times their donor region is over harvested and they don't have a lot of resources left. And so what I do is kind of what we've been talking about. I'll look and see what bothers them about the transplant. Typically, I see very low hairlines, very, very broad, and those obviously tend to suck up a lot of grafts. And so if I can utilize some of those grafts that did grow and remove them from the inappropriate location to create density somewhere else, top of the scalp, frontal hairline, we'll go ahead and talk about that. If they had a reasonable number of grafts extracted, maybe got poor growth, I'll assess their donor region to see if they have additional grafts available, and they're certainly a candidate for more. Then I'll go ahead and recommend that for them. SMP is a big help with these patients as well. Again, they tend to be over harvested. I've seen some patients with pretty reasonable growth, but it just so happened that a lot of the good growth was in inappropriate locations. And I think when patients go to some of these clinics, they think it's a great idea to have a hairline, placed pretty aggressively low on the forehead. And then when they come back and they actually look in the mirror after it grows, it just doesn't look quite right, depending on their age, of course, and the density. You can't have a low hairline with super low density and have it look fantastic. So by the time they get to me, they're pretty open to whatever my suggestions might be, and I always have to counsel them on the fact that, look, you've used a lot of your donor capacity, you didn't get great results, poor growth, typically, and you're going to have to accept a long-range appearance of something that may not be what you had in mind when you first started to go into looking for a hair transplant.